Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Astrology Hub Podcast. This is our flagship show that is dedicated to demonstrating how astrology can support you in so many different areas of life with the different astrological approaches and techniques that are so available to all of us. We feature up-and-coming astrologers as well as living legends in the field and lots in between, as well as people who offer complementary skills and perspectives to the practice of astrology. And today we have Eugenia Krok, who is like a combination of all those things, in my opinion. She's doing so much for the field and really bringing in a lot of interesting perspectives that we will be exploring a bit of today. So just to give you a little bit of background on Eugenia, she holds a master's degree in counseling and art psychotherapy, along with a certification in grief therapy. As a practicing astrologer of over 10 years, Eugenia has now served thousands of grateful clients. Through her education, research, data collection, and experiences, Eugenia utilizes her training in psychotherapy with her enthusiasm for astrology to bridge access into self-understanding and self-acceptance. I love that so much, Eugenia. And I'm really excited to have you here, to have this opportunity to meet you and introduce you to our community.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for thinking of me, and it's great to be here. I'm really excited. I was saying before, I love what you've done for the field of astrology. You have taken your Capricorn and brought it to the masses, which is just awesome. So thank you for all you've done, and thanks for inviting me.
Oh, thank you. Well, Eugenia, we reached out to our inner circle members and we gave them some options for different topics that you could cover today. And we got a resounding vote for the importance of your rising sign. So that's going to be the topic today. And it was close. I mean, it's always hard. It's like, it's like kid in a candy store moment. You can talk about any of these things and we have to choose one, but there were definitely a lot of people interested in this rising sign discussion. And I know, having interviewed so many astrologers, there's so many different perspectives on the rising sign. There's like, it's the mask you wear. It's your soul's path. It's the thing you're rising into. It's like, oh my gosh, which one is it? Or is it all the above? So very excited to dive into that topic in a second. But before we do that, since this is your first time on the Astrology Hub podcast, can you share with us a little bit about your journey? How did you get to this place where you're practicing astrology and incorporating the psychotherapy and the grief therapy and all the amazing, and the art therapy, like all the different things you're doing?
Yeah, thanks. I had a grandmother who was an Aquarius. I am also an Aquarius. And so right from the very start, she was always like, oh yeah, so we're different than everybody else in the family. So we're over here in our little tribe. And I never understood exactly what she meant. But it was just part of my vocabulary always in my life. And she'd always buy me books. And so I guess I've always been interested in it. But I went to get my master's degree in psychotherapy and counseling. And of course, that took me a lot of diverting roads to even get there. I used to be in politics and I used to be very like, I want to change the world and the whole thing. And then I started to realize that one-on-one work would probably be the biggest way I can affect change. And so I decided to become a therapist. And it was in that program that I met Jason Hawley, which I'm not sure if you have interviewed him before.
We've wanted to.
Right.
Jason, we would love to have you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And so he was, at the time, I don't want to speak on behalf of him at all, but I'm not sure he was like letting everyone know he was an astrologer at the university, like, because back then you just would never, that's not like, you would not bridge astrology into psychotherapy, but he little by little started doing it with like the moon sign. And he'd be like, let's track our mood with the moon. And I'm like, that's so smart. Why have I never thought of that in my entire life? And it was him, it was actually this experience in class. He had us do this interesting experiment with each other one day. And I had this really like startling experience. It was just like very, when you see a part of yourself you didn't realize existed. And I went to him and I said, what just happened? And he said, well, when were you born? And I said, why would you ask me that? That doesn't make any sense. Like, what's the correlation? And so I told him when I was born, and he worked out my chart in his head, which at the time was like, how did you do that? And now, I get it now. And he said, oh, well, yeah, you were born with a South Node in Capricorn. So that's why all of these things in your life have happened. And I was like, how did you know that? Like, verbatim, right? With just telling him my birthday. I didn't have to tell him the time or anything. And that was it. Like, of all my traveling and exploring in the world, the first time I ever met anyone who explained anything that made sense about who I was. And I'm sure everybody has that experience. It's like, oh, right. That's amazing that the time of birth explained me to myself better than I could have ever understood. So that's where it came from. Yeah.
Amazing. And so then what? You just like, I'm going to dive in. I'm going to learn how to do this. Like, what happened then?
Yeah. So I started practicing as a therapist initially. I started an art therapy studio. And what I started to realize was when I would go to the office to see my art therapy clients, I'd always be like late and I wouldn't like get that dressed up. And I just like, oh, I'll go see my art therapist. But when I went to see a client who wanted to look at their chart, I was like there, I was excited, my energy lifted. You know, I feel like in life, the answer to so many of our questions is, does your energy go up or does it go down? And that helps us like understand. And so that was part of it. And then I also met like a really awesome teacher along the way he really inspired me to live an inspired life. He's like, do the thing that inspires you, but he's really clever in how he does it. And so one day I said, you know what, I don't think about anything else. I don't dream about anything. Like all I want to do is astrology. I think about it 24 hours, you know, like why not just make this my thing? And so I converted to a full-time astrologer probably at this point, almost like maybe 7 years ago. So I've been practicing for 13 years about.
And were you sort of secretly weaving it into your psychotherapy before that?
Yeah.
And now do you, as an astrologer, do you use the skill set that you got as a psychotherapist in astrology?
Yes. Yeah. And that's actually probably the biggest thing in my practice is I'm constantly aware of the ethics of being a counselor. And part of what we're going to talk about today actually involves ethics, because what I've started to learn over time is that you can't, it's not advantageous to share everything you see in an astrology chart. It's just not. There is, you know, there's a lot of, I say this all the time and like when I teach astrology, when I talk about it, but astrologers, I think, are like doctors. And I know that's like totally insane to say, and most people would laugh at that. But like a doctor, we have the ability to save someone's life and we have the ability to ruin someone's life. And because we're more powerful than therapists. I mean, therapists sit there and they listen, they reflect back, they can do neurological things. Of course, they can use EMDR and brain spotting and things of that nature, which is hugely powerful. But when you take something as powerful and potent as the cosmos, and you say, I'm reading the stars and this is what, it's so much bigger, it's so much powerful, and it can plant these ideas in someone's brain that can take off. Like it's like they can take seeds and they can start to weed the person's brain. Like I had an astrologer tell me right at the beginning of my, when I started learning in my 20s, they said, you're never going to have a relationship. You're only going to be married to God in your life and because of your chart. And I was like, wait, what? And they're like, no, your devotion is to God in this lifetime. And I was like, I really, really want to get married. That's not, so I assumed I would never meet someone, and that really affected me. Right.
Yes.
So, and that was not, she shouldn't have said that. Like there's no ethics in what she said. There was a different way she could have said it. There's a lot of ways she could have described that. So I think in my practice, I'm very, very conscientious of the ethical side of this work because of my background in therapy.
Eugenia, it's like music to my ears, and we feel the same way. There's like, with great power comes great responsibility. And this tool, art, science, whatever you want to qualify it as, does have that much potential to either uplift or just completely diminish. And so I love to hear what you're doing. I can't believe, I mean, I've heard that a lot. You know, I was told I would never get married. I was told I would never have children. I was told I was going to die at a certain.
Oh my God, I've heard those. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, and that's where it's like, God. And when I hear those stories, it's like, oh my God, my heart breaks. Like that. So I'm glad you're here to help us understand another way to approach astrology and to have that responsible approach in mind when we're working with people. And also, I'm sure there's healing for people themselves, because I know there's a community members here who have probably heard things like that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's hard to erase it once you've heard it.
It really is. It's like a doctor giving you a diagnosis that you're going to die at, you know, where there's this whole thing now we know about epigenetics, right? That we have the ability to shape and shift our, you know, perception and our body and our cells and our DNA. We have neuroplasticity. We can change patterns in our brain. We know all that now. So if you had a diagnosis as a child from a doctor, they said, oh, you can never get pregnant, let's say, you believe that. And the truth is, we now know that, you know, doctors make lots of mistakes. I think one of the biggest killers is at the error of a doctor. I think that's one of the number one killers in America is doctor error. And so to place all of our power on a doctor or an astrologer, that's something we have to learn to work with and deal with. But to recognize the power that we have, like a doctor, is so important. And I mess up all the time. In fact, just this week, I was meeting with my rising sign groups, and I messed up. And I kicked myself for it. And I realized I had, you know, and I'm constantly having to reevaluate and get supervision on how do I speak about this? How do I repair what I've just said for the client and for the group or whatever it is. And I'm not perfect at this. I just know that it is something that should be on the top of every astrologer's head with every reading that they look at. What is this person ready to hear? Because the thing is, we look at someone's chart and it's like they've taken their clothes off and we can see everything. I mean, it's there. Like I don't have to dig around your brain for a year and ask you questions. I see it. And now with the statistics I've gathered over the last 13 years reading, well, I think I'm at 3,000 clients, but I have read, you know, over 500,000 charts and studied over 500,000 charts. And you start to see these patterns that are really predictable. So I pick up a chart, especially looking at the rising sign, and already I know so much based on so many hundreds of thousands of charts of statistics I've kept. So how do I give that information and it's not definite either, right? I can't say this is definitely this. However, I've seen this pattern show up time and time again with your rising sign, for example, right? But how do you say that ethically? And that's a big piece of what we'll talk about today too.
Yeah. And how do you read how ready they are, how open they are, how receptive they are, where they're at in their journey, all those things. Amazing. So you've already completely piqued our interest because you're talking about actually doing research on rising signs and coming to some consistent conclusions. So can you tell us more about what we have?
Yeah. So I actually just put out a podcast episode on this. I have a podcast, Accessible Astrology, and I just put it out.
What's it called, Eugenia?
Accessible Astrology.
Okay.
Yeah. And I just put an episode out about the sun, moon, and rising signs. So I talk a little bit about it there too. I get into this some more. But so you do see these very consistent patterns start to show up. And I kind of just lost my train of thought. Can you ask that question?
Totally.
Gemini rising. I'm like, what?
Yes. Well, yes, I get it with my Gemini moon. So my question was, you have done research, you have found consistent things about rising signs. The topic of our talk is the importance of rising signs. So maybe you want to start there with what is the importance of rising signs? Yes.
Okay. So this is perfect. So, the reason I'm saying it, because when I started to really get into astrology, I was living in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And back then, I was there in 2008-9 time. I had not heard much about astrology at that point in my life. It was not nothing like it is now, right? And so you would meet people and they say, "What's your sun, moon, and rising?" And I just couldn't understand. Why would you ask me that? That's crazy. But now in hindsight, I understand why people were asking that. But it really got me into, why are you asking me that? Why these three? What is so important about these three parts in our chart? So when I started studying, I put a lot of focus on those three parts of the chart because that's what everybody was talking about. It was just very normal. And so what I started to realize is that, so rising signs. So what is this? So people say it's your personality. They say it's this. Why? That's the thing I couldn't understand, is why you can't just say that your rising sign is how you look or how you appear, your identity. That doesn't give me any grounding into what I'm experiencing. So I started to think about it a lot more. And the first thing I thought about, well, let's think about it. If you think about the sun rising in the east every morning, it sets the tone of your day. So like for example, I woke up not in the great place this morning. I went to bed very, very late, and I woke up much later than I expected. And I just was like frazzled. I've had a frazzled day. So I'm having an experience with you right now that is actually based on the tone of the morning I had, quite literally. What was going on in the astrology this morning, etc. But how I wake up in the morning sets the tone of my day. So could it be that the sign that's rising in the east sets the tone of your life? And it turns out it does. And it starts to set up not just the tone of your life, but it also sets up the tone of your chart. Okay, now I'm a whole sign house astrologer. So a lot of my theories don't have the same credence maybe, or the same strength in like a Placidus or Porphyry system or something of that nature. And I was a Porphyry astrologer for many, many years, half of my career. And then I switched over about 7 years ago. And I am officially a whole sign astrologer now. And a lot of my theories are based on whole sign astrology, but you do start to see that not only does it set up the tone of life, the tone of the chart, but every rising sign has a really similar story. Shockingly similar story. And so I'll talk a little bit about my sign, but I started to see this, and then I was like, wait a second. So I started to go through charts. I look at my computer here, and I just went through chart. I was like, oh my God. And now I have literally rising sign support groups where I'm putting together individuals who literally have the same rising signs so they can get to know each other. Because what I started to work out during my time is I'd see client after client. Like, for example, last year, 2020, and let's say 2019, I had Cancer rising, Capricorn rising, Cancer rising. That was my client. And that's been over the course of 13 years, you get people in your office or in your Zoom box who are going through something, they're going through the same transit. So you'll go through a phase of having all Leo risings. You'll go through a phase of this. Well, like in 2018 or 19 and 20, it was Cancer and Capricorn. And I just kept saying, let me just get you guys together because I'm literally wasting my breath talking to you as individuals.
Wow.
Wasting my time and I'm wasting my breath. Yes, each chart is unique and different and amazing. But to get them all and say, yeah, do you see how you're going through this and you're going through this and you're going through this and well, now I get to do that. That's what I'm doing. I'm bringing people together who can actually be like, wow, I had that experience. Did you? Wait, what? And it's hugely healing to know that what you're going through is actually not all that unique, which is good and bad,
I think mainly good. Once you get over the I'm the only one going through this, it's so nice to know that there's a bunch of other people having a similar experience. But I'm kind of amazed that you're able to base this all on the rising sign. Like it has that much importance because, again, like I said this in the beginning, but when you hear different astrologers talk about it, it's like this whole the mask you wear sort of thing. Or I've heard it equated to, it's like if there was a boat out in the ocean and it was coming to shore, it'd be like the way that you're experiencing or witnessing that boat come to shore is like your rising sign. Mm-hmm. But then I know esoteric astrology is like, this is the most important point. Like this is your soul. It's almost like the nodes in evolutionary astrology is like the rising sign in esoteric astrology. So this is fascinating because what you're saying is it's like both your life path, like it's setting the stage for your entire life story, but it's also coloring your entire chart, which means it's like, would you even say there is a quote unquote ruling planet, or would you say like the ruling planet is essentially your rising sign?
Well, the ruling planet of your rising sign is what makes us different. So I'm a Gemini rising, right? And my husband's a Gemini rising, for example. We both are. So this has been the craziest experiment of them all, is being married to someone with the same rising sign. Literally, we both got scratched on our hand in the exact same spot. He just did it a day before I did. We're just about a half degree off in our rising sign. So our stories have been, and he's Egyptian and British. And he's a different generation than me altogether. And somehow we've had the same stories, right? So I've seen that happen constantly with him. So that's been a really fascinating experiment. But what makes him different than me is his rising sign ruler is in his 7th. Mine is in my 9th. And that is what makes us distinctively very different.
Okay. So the rising sign ruler.
Yeah.
And what house it's in.
Yeah. And how it's aspected and
how it's aspected. That's what makes variation between the rising signs.
Yeah. That's what makes each individual particularly unique is from what I can tell. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So can you give us a flavor of some of the rising signs? Of course, we all want to know.
Yeah. So let me just start. I'm going to back up a little bit. So something that happened since I started these rising sign groups, which I did not expect, but I announced these rising sign groups and then my life like completely fell apart with this Saturn-Uranus square. My life has just been like bombed and it's just, I live in a totally new town now. I wasn't expecting that. Like it's been a bit crazy. So the groups have actually changed with that. So it's been kind of this weird amalgamation of things. And what's happened is we've actually split up right now into 3 groups, which is the fixed or the cardinal modality rising, fixed rising, or mutable rising signs. So I want to start with that first.
Okay.
Because those 3, when I put these 3 groups together, I didn't expect to learn or understand what I learned and understood in that group so quickly, but I've learned probably more in the last, 3 months of working with these groups than I have in my entire career. To see fixed rising sign people together versus mutable versus cardinal is something to behold. It's something that was really unexpected. I never expected putting these 3 groups together. And you see really quickly and clearly, first off, how different people are based on the modality. Now, the reason this is so important, there's many, 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 many reasons for that. But there's this thing called the angular houses, right? The 1st, the 4th, the 7th, and the 10th, right? Now, to me, these are the most important houses, not just because, you read about it, but think about it this way. So I know that you are Amanda. I know that your hair is curled and that you live in Hawaii. I don't actually know your relationship status, but I do know that I know you have kids and I know you are an astrologer. Okay, so I know what you look like, your 1st house. I know you live in Hawaii, the 4th house. I don't know your relationship status because I just don't. But it'd be really easy for me to ask you it and for you to respond. And then I know what you do for work. Okay, but I don't know if you had sex last night. Okay, I don't know how much debt you have. I don't know who your friends are. I don't know your religious beliefs. I don't know your political ideologies and beliefs. That's the rest of the chart. Okay, but the 4 angular houses are the cornerstone of our personality because it's what we share with the world, right? The rest is all nuance. The rest is all the stuff we're figuring out about ourselves and that we're trying to work out, and that we're trying to work out with other people, and this is why we go to therapy, is to figure out the rest of this, right? But it's pretty easy to be like, I'm Eugenia, I have brown hair, I have white skin, I'm from America, I'm married, and I'm an astrologer, right? It's so easy for me to say those things. Like I'm not embarrassed or shy or uncomfortable, okay? So if you have those angular houses that have all fixed signs, could it be that that's going to have a massive impact on your life? Yeah. Huge impact.
Yes.
Huge impact. Cardinal, huge impact. Right? So if you just start with that, and I can give that to your listeners and viewers just to start thinking about that, right? Could it be that the fixed rising sign people go about relationship, work, and home differently than a mutable rising?
Yes.
Huge difference in how those 3 sets of people's lives look. Huge difference. And you actually start to see archetypes of like psychological terminology that is been used to describe different groups of people through psychology, sociology, and those modalities. You actually see them now in these 3 groups, and you're like, that's just what that is. Those are the categories of these different people. So that's the first thing I would encourage all of your listeners to consider, is how enormously important just that is. And that's based on your rising sign.
Because it's right there on the 1st house. Yeah. So we know that if the 1st house is fixed, then the 4th, the 7th they're all going to be fixed
all
too.
going to be fixed.
Okay.
And therefore, the fixed houses, the 2nd, the 5th, the 8th, the 11th, let's say you're fixed, will all be immutable signs. And the mutable houses, the 3rd, the 6th, the 9th, and the 12th will all be cardinal.
Wow. So that is a lot of similarity. I mean, that's like coloring all those different aspects of life a certain way. So tell us what you've noticed about the different groups.
So, yeah, sure. I'd love to share that. So again, because this has been like blowing my mind. I didn't expect, because I know my data on every rising sign. I got it. I know Aries. I know Taurus. I got it. This was all new. So what I've started to recognize is that, well, let's start with the cardinal group. So if you think about cardinal signs, we're talking Aries, right? I wish I had like a thing to show. We're talking Aries, we're talking Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. Now, these are all the signs that are at the beginning of the change of season, right? So this is the spring equinox, the summer solstice, fall equinox, and so on. So when you think about cardinal energy, all of those signs are essentially the initiation to begin something. But there's also something very, what's the word? Traditional or classical about those 4 signs. Think about Aries and Libra. It's like the individual versus the couple. It's like the yang, Aries, Mars versus the yin, yang. Yin is feminine. So the yang. So Aries is the yang. Libra's the yin. It's like, well, what about we? It's Venusian. It's Venus. So it's masculine, feminine. Similar with Cancer and Capricorn. It's the mother. It's the father. It's the yin, the yang. It's very dualistic, actually. Those 4 signs. It's traditional. It's man, woman. Left, right, it's very like split into this energy, yin, yang, it's not mutable. Okay. It's very clear cut. So we're seeing what I've seen now with the cardinal group in general is, and this is all changing ever since 2020, which has completely obliterated cardinal energy. So I think we have to reevaluate what this all means as a culture, but you see a lot of individuals who have chosen more traditional paths, more clear cut, in that, getting married, having children, having a career, very like, just clear cut. It's not as mutable as say my group. So that's the first thing I see with cardinal is it's just a very, I'm trying to think of the better ways to describe it. I haven't worked out how to speak about this publicly, so you have to excuse me. But it's more traditional, for lack of a better term.
I think that's a good word. I think we can fill in the blanks for what that means. Probably that can have cultural variation, but there would be like, this is the path that most people follow. This is kind of like the whisper of culture or society that is like, this is what you do.
Totally. That's it. What culture tells you to do, cardinal
does. This is what you do. Yeah.
Exactly. So what culture is telling us to do now is changing. So it has to change. So for example, the non-millennial cardinal rising signs lives look very different actually than the millennial cardinal rising sign.
Because the expectations were different.
Totally.
Okay. That's fascinating. Yeah. But either way, they're going to go with the majority like line essentially of the time.
Yes, kind of. Yeah. So for example, I'm Pluto Libra. And so the people in my group who are Pluto Libra, which is a cardinal sign, like they really have mostly got married, had kids, and led fairly traditional lives. Now the millennials, though, we've got some who've been married and been divorced since. They're learning, about, their independence. It's a whole new thing for them because we just had all of that stuff move through Capricorn, right? So what tradition is gone now. We're now in the age of Aquarius. Now who knows what a traditional family is going to look like exactly. So that's the one that seems, and that's why I had all the cardinal rising signs in my office for those years, because they were all the ones who were like, what is my identity? Who am I married to? what's my home? What's my work? Right? Because what they thought it should be, the gods came in and said, no, like it doesn't look like this anymore. We have to break through for this new consciousness. And so they went through a lot of challenges in the last few years as clients from my experience.
Right? Okay, awesome. So that's cardinal. Which one do you want to do next? Mutable?
Yeah. So we'll do a fixed next. We'll go in order. So the fixed rising signs, it's a very different energy, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But namely, I think what I'd like to say about fixed energy is the thing about fixed energy, it is fixed in the middle of the month.
For those who don't know fixed, can you say which one?
Oh, yeah, sorry. So Taurus is the middle of spring. It's the heart of spring. It's not the initiation into spring. It is spring. Leo is the heart of summer. It's not the initiation. It is the heart of summer. Scorpio, heart of fall. And Aquarius is the heart of winter. And those are the 4 fixed signs. And so you have to think about that energy differently. So what's going on in the fixed energy? So I have literally no idea what's going on. Are we still in Cancer season right now? I don't even know.
Yes.
I've just moved, so I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know what day of the week it is. Okay, so we're in Cancer season. So we're just like really getting into summer right now, right? In the Northern Hemisphere. We're like really loving it. Well, really soon it's about to get really summer. It's going to be really warm. It's going to be lots of sun, to the point that people are going to look forward to the fall. So as we'll move into Virgo, they'll be looking to change season. But when you're in the season, you're in the season. But something that's really interesting about the fixed signs that I've observed in my career is they have a lot to do with survival. Okay. I have to survive this season. I have to survive this season. I have to survive this season. Taurus being survival from the perspective of, a seedling growing. And if you don't pay attention to your seedling during Taurus season, it won't make it. It's dead, right? You have to really fixate on that seedling during Taurus season. After that, it starts to grow its legs a little bit. But then Leo season comes along, and the harsh sun and all those things, you have to really think about your plant at that season. Make sure you get the most life out of it that you can, so you can yield the biggest crop. Then we come to Scorpio season, and now we're moving into winter. You better make sure you got your food, you have your food, you're ready to go in darkness in winter to survive winter. And then Aquarius, you've got to just get through it. Right? You just got to get through the middle of winter. You better have enough shelter, clothing, et cetera, in this and everywhere but Hawaii. So, but the non-equatorial places, which 85 or 89% of the humans on planet Earth live in the Northern Hemisphere, experiencing these 4 seasons. The rest are in the southern or at the equator. So those energies of those seasons are something we're unconsciously experiencing all the time, whether we're aware of it or not. We feel differently in the winter than we do in the summer. So we feel differently during fixed seasons, and there is this survival piece of it. And so if you think about survival and the nature of survival of the fixed signs, and you put those in your angular houses, could that have an impact on the type of partners you choose, the type of work you choose, and where you live? Right now, especially with fixed rising signs, your stories as individuals, so Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, are really, what's the word? Unique stories, I think, to the rest of the rising signs as well. And so that will impact your childhood and what has happened in your childhood, which then explains why that survival mentality fills in those 4 houses later on in life.
And when you're talking about survival, can that be survival of the body is one, right? Survive to actually stay alive, but also survival of your soul?
Yeah.
Because there's been things that have happened in my life. I'm Aquarius rising, right? Where it's if I don't do this, or if I don't make a change, my soul will die. My physical body is probably going to be fine, maybe not so healthy, but my my soul feels like it's going to die. So the choices are based on this survival of something kind of eternal, but that needs to express in this lifetime.
And I think your group experiences things a little bit more traumatically than the other groups. because all of you have Aquarius in one of your angular houses. We talked a little bit about Aquarius earlier, which we could maybe talk about some other time or later on. But knowing that you have Aquarius in one of your angular houses, that already tells me enough about how you're going to approach life. Meaning that survival piece of, yes, change, but I actually feel like what you guys do is you get fixated on your relationship, on where you live, on your work. So, because you can't, the change will kill you, right? It's like, because literally the mutability kills the spring. The mutability kills the summer. The mutability kills the fall and the winter. Mutable signs do. They complete that. So when you're in the middle of that season, you have to like hold on to it, right? Like Scorpio, for example. There's a lot of attachment psychology that runs through the minds of us anywhere where we have Scorpio. The topic psychologically will be attachment or attachment theory in the field of psychology. Because when you're in Scorpio season, for example, you don't really want to go to winter. I mean, kind of, but you're like, it's just like you hold on to life while you have it. You know you're about to go into the dead of winter. You know it. You might not even be aware of that you're doing it, but you do it, right? We celebrate the dead during Dia de los Muertos because we're attached to it. We're attached to life that's even gone, right? Because we don't want to go into that darkness because we have to meet ourselves in the dark, right? We have to lose things in the dark. We have to let go of another year. We have to let go of another relationship. We have to let go of another life, right?
So is this where the trauma piece comes in? Because when you, like you were saying about the Cancer Capricorn axis last year, being like, oh my gosh, what tradition or lineage or like, what am I supposed to do here? Yeah. That would be like what you were just describing about change for the fixed. It like obliterates everything. And that's where the trauma comes in.
Totally.
So that it definitely resonates for sure.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Okay.
And think about just really quickly, we right now we have Uranus and Taurus, and literally everyone's afraid to be alive right now. Literally everyone's afraid to be alive right now because Uranus, Aquarius, and Saturn in Aquarius is in the survival signs. And so one of the big things I've talked a lot about throughout 2020 and 2021 is that, especially next year with the astrology of next year, when the nodes shift into fixed signs, you do see a huge onslaught of cults during this energy, right? So you saw it with Uranus and Scorpio, you saw it with Uranus and Taurus previously, because when you feel afraid to be on this earth, you look to anybody to tell you that they're going to get you through this, that you're going to survive if you follow what I say or whatever I do. And so I can say pretty much with all certainty, you're going to see a lot of cult activity in the news next year because people are afraid right now, right? They're not trusting because they know that things are coming into completion.
Well, I think it's one of the reasons why so many of us are drawn to astrology because it's one of these constant sources of guidance that feels like something you can actually like hold on to versus all these other ones that seem to change and go in and go out and who knows if it's the truth or not.
Well, astrology is Aquarius, so it's fixed, right? The whole concept of astrology exactly.
Okay, so let's go to mutable then.
Okay, so mutable is going to be a really different energy. Mutable is all about
wait, first say which signs.
Oh, okay. So Gemini, and I'm like the Gemini rising. There's literally randomly someone waiting outside my door and my husband's not here and I'm like getting distracted by it. Who would have thunk? I'm gonna actually, do you mind if I turn on a light? It's just gotten suddenly dark. I'm just gonna
go ahead. Yeah, we'll hang out. Okay. A lot of people are sharing their rising signs. You can continue to do that. It's really, if you feel comfortable, it's really fun to see all the different rising signs that are here right now.
Yeah. Oh, it's fascinating. It's really cool. Okay. So yes, my Gemini rising, I'm like distracted. There's like someone outside. Anyway. So Gemini rising, Gemini. So we've got Gemini, we have got, so the end of spring, we've got then Virgo, the end of summer, we've got Sagittarius, the end of fall, and we've got Pisces the end of the winter. Okay. So these seasons are really different because they are changing. It's letting go. It's saying, I'm letting go of the form here. I'm no longer in the attachment of spring. I'm moving into summer. I'm no longer in the attachment. Think about like Virgo season. There's always this sweet relief that we're actually heading into the fall. It's not like Scorpio when you're in it. It's like, oh, we're leaving the summer. Oh, this is great. I'm looking forward to getting cozy again and having my, pumpkin spice latte or whatever. There's something like, okay, I'm leaving. I'm moving away from that. Same then, of course, as we leave the fall into the winter solstice, and then Pisces, of course, the very last sign of the entire year of the entire zodiac is the final departure from it all. It is the final release of the entire zodiac, right? So the energy of the mutable risings, me being one of them, is we're not fixated. I can tell you that much. We are moving. We are in motion, right? Mm-hmm. And this is something I think too, like if you have kids. So as I've started working with these groups, my mom's a Aquarius rising and I'm not. And I grew up in an environment that was fixed. It was like we had the same meal pretty much. Like there was a very consistent schedule, right? We basically had the same meal every day of the week. She listened to the same radio program every Sunday while she did the dishes. Not that her life wasn't something that did change, but it didn't. So what I started to realize in these groups is one of my biggest traumas as a child was that I was a non-fixed person, even though I'm a fixed sign. I was a non-mixed or fixed person in a fixed world. So I wanted change. I wanted to move around. I wanted to see things, right? I have Sagittarius in my 7th house of relationships. My husband is from 2 different cultures, not just 1, but 2. So I married a man who inspires me to see the world. My job is constantly changing. I mean, anyone who follows my work, like you will never see a regular podcast posted. I do not post a podcast every week at this time. I can't. My life literally won't allow me to. So you start to, my homes have changed. And not only do they change, but even if I've stayed in a home, the home itself will change. I'll move rooms and I'll change furniture very, very frequently. I need non-routine. I need things to be in motion and change, right? So whereas Cardinal is initiating something to begin, fixed is getting fixated, and immutable is letting go of it. So and again, I sat there during these groups and I was like, oh, that's why my mom and I struggle. She can't understand that I want my life to keep changing. She can't
understand how you could thrive that way, how that would actually be good.
Totally.
She's seeing that, yes, that's what you do, but is that really what's good? Totally. What's so interesting, Eugenia, is as you were speaking, I was like, oh my gosh, I have a daughter that is Cardinal. I have a daughter that is mutable, and I'm fixed.
Wow.
So we have all 3 of them, which is hilarious. And I can see us all so completely in these descriptions, which is fascinating. But it seems to me like if we understand these things about each other, we can let go of my way is the right way. 100%. And my way is the way that everyone else needs to be.
100%.
Like, my way works for me, but might not work for you. Do you ever get your 3 groups together to like share stories so there can be like compassion bred between the different groups?
Well, I have a community, so we meet twice a month anyway. So we're
on different days that are unpredictable.
Always. I basically send things out like a half hour before. I'm like, all right, let's meet. I just, because I don't function like that. There's and if you think about it, for me as a Gemini rising, I have Virgo in the 4th house. So if we think about the astrology chart, whatever was rising in the east, this is what was visible in the sky when we were born. So from the rising sign all the way up to the 9th, the 10th, and then everything below that ascendant, descendant, below the earth was not visible to us. So what is ever in the 4th house is the most unconscious part of the chart, if you ask me. So the 4th house, I think, is deeply unconscious house. And a lot of information can be found there that we can't. It's really hard for us to see our own 4th house, for example. So I have Virgo in my 4th house. So because I have Virgo in my 4th house, organization is not something that is publicly experienced for my life. I think everyone who's ever encountered me work-wise thinks I'm incredibly disorganized, and quite literally I am. I have Pisces in my 10th house. My career is always a mess. I would die if I didn't have an assistant. My career, it would be dead. It would be dead if I didn't have that consistent help by a fixed rising sign, and so, but Virgo in the 4th, so it's this, it's invisible for people to see it, but it exists. I still have Virgo. And for example, my husband and I just moved. I won't let him touch any of the boxes. He's like, can I unpack this? I'm like, no, I have to do it exactly like I want. And I'm like, oh, right. I'm a total control freak. But you can't see that in the rest of my chart, right? So we could then talk about Aquarius rising. What's in your 4th house, right?
Gemini. Yeah.
Huh?
That would be Gemini.
Well, because you might use a different house, this might use whole sign.
That's the thing. So we would have to chart this with whole sign. Okay.
Yeah. My theories can't. They can still work because it's always on the cusp of, but
Right. Okay. Now, question from Jackie. It's a good question. What about the people who don't know their time of birth?
I can figure it out really quickly because of my statistics.
Whoa. Oh, wow. So you could just reverse engineer it and ask them questions about their life and really, is that what you would do?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. I just, So most people have like an understanding of the time of day, like morning, evening, whatever. So that usually narrows it down to a few, cluster of signs. And then based on my statistics, I just say, was this your childhood experience? Was this or was this? And then they'll say, and I was like, yeah. So like I've had actually a number of clients throughout my career where I'm like, this isn't your rising sign. And they're like, are you sure? I'm like, no, I promise this isn't your rising sign. Go double check your chart. Like go double check your birth certificate. Go. And always they'll come back and they're like, yeah, no, that was the wrong time. I'm like, yeah, because your story didn't fit the story of that rising sign.
Okay.
So quickly and clearly.
Wow, that's amazing. I think that was music to a lot of people's ears. You might be getting a lot of phone calls.
Yeah, I know. I should. Yeah, I'll have to.
Oh, I know what you should do. You need a fixed person. I can help you with this, but there should be some sort of survey that people could fill out that walks them through the kind of questions you would ask.
Yeah.
And then we have it spit out like what your prediction was.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some algorithm. I'm sure AI will take over our entire jobs at some point anyways. We might as well start now.
I don't know. I mean, maybe, but I don't think all of it. Because we know that astrology is more than just a mechanical thing.
Yes.
That there is intuition and there's other things that are involved that I don't know that AI could ever do.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows?
I pray that my job isn't redundant one day. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so this is fascinating.
Yeah,
I know that everybody is really interested to learn more. We're basically at our time. How could they learn more about your work?
So yeah, Accessible Astrology, the podcast, accessibleastrology.com, and and we do have our rising sign group. So we're actually just in our modality groups right now. So we're just meeting with our fixed, our mutable, and our cardinal. And it's not till November that we're going to split off into our 12 unique groups. And it's once we get into those 12 unique groups that I'm going to be able to share what I know. And in fact, I won't even have to share it. They'll just see it. Like once they're all together, they're going to be like, wait. Yeah. You're going through this right now. I'm going through this right now. Wait, you're married to this type of person. I'm married to this type of, et cetera, et cetera. So that's how that will work.
And do you find that, one more question, do you find that it's good to look for the other modes to complement you. Like you just said, you're mutable. If you didn't have the fixed assistant in your life, you would not be able to. So is it good to surround yourself with people that have these other modalities so that you can have some balanced perspective?
Yeah. Well, in fact, I have co-facilitators. That's just recently changed, but it was, and I have to kind of reorganize some of that, but it was very sweet that we got different perspectives. Like our fixed rising signs, like time, like we are at time. And me and my other mutable co-facilitator are like, oh, wait, what's time? Wait, what?
Right.
We have a time limit on this. This is crazy.
It does bring so much lightness, really, and like humor to it. Cause it's like, oh, that's just, we're wired differently. And what I love about what you're doing is first of all, it's research-based, which is really cool because that doesn't happen all the time in astrology. I would think it would happen more, but it's, there's pockets of people doing some, I guess we don't really get funded. Like a lot of like big extensive research needs a lot of funding. That's probably why it's not happening as much as it should. Yeah. But I love that you've done it, with the tools that we have today, with all the different people that you've seen. So it's research-based, which is very cool. And it's really simplified. I mean, it's really easy to understand, and it's easy for anyone to figure out pretty much what they are. And then how do you see it being helpful? Like, how do people use it to, better themselves or better their lives, or how do you see it being helpful?
Well, the groups in particular. So this is a direct quote from Jason Hawley when he was my teacher at the therapy school. He said, there's nothing quite like being gotten.
Yeah.
I think that's the first piece, is these groups to feel gotten. I mean, I've been able to get through the last 3 months of my life that have been very, very chaotic, because I know that people with my modality are going through, they all have eclipses in their angular houses right now. We're all going through that, all of my group right now. So we're all having this, you hear the same words described for what we're going through. And it's different because each rising sign is different. But, that piece of being gotten is enormous, I think. And again, like I've been working with clients one-on-one for 13 years, and you can only, you learn a lot from that, obviously, but there's nothing like putting a group of, I'm an Aquarius. There's nothing like putting a group of people together and seeing the magic that can happen and the healing that can happen from that. But outside of the groups in your own individual lives, I think the thing that's the most helpful about understanding your rising sign is, rather than making the decisions in life you think you should, you start to make the decisions you know that are more aligned. And I'll use myself as a very quick example. I assumed that I was going to marry a suit, someone who like went to Wall Street, because this is what I saw. This is the image you get. These are movies, these are programs, right? I assumed I'd just meet this guy who like, had the X and Y qualities. And one day I finally, when all this hit, I was like, I have Sagittarius in my 7th house. Like every man I've dated is from a different country. He has always lived out of a vehicle at one point of his life, if not during our relationship, mostly. He's a philosopher. He's a traveler. He's not a suit. And so one day I just was like, what I think I want is different than what I need. I need to accept that I have Sagittarius in my, hold on. Sorry. It's been that day, Amanda, that I woke up. It's just been crazy.
I hope this is a bright spot in your day, though.
Oh, yeah. God, I love talking about astrology. It always is. But so what I did is I finally just accepted the difference between what I wanted and what I needed, so to speak, right? I think a lot of our wants and desires are programmed. I just know they are, from our media to our parents, to our religions, to our teachers. We are told what we want all the time. And that's what astrology, that is why astrology is so awesome. It tells you what you need, which is totally different. Totally. So when I just accepted my husband or partner needs to be my teacher, when I accepted that, I kind of could let all of those expectations fall and be like, this is my chart. This is just, I have Pisces in my 10th. You'll be hard pressed to find a Gemini rising who hasn't worked with dying people, right? Whereas everyone's like, what? You want to be around people who are dying? I'm like, yeah, it's awesome. And they're like, what? Why would you do that? And you're like, well, I don't know. Am I weird? Is it weird? And then you get together with every Gemini rising you meet, and you're like, oh, you're all doing that kind of work in some capacity, right?
Yeah.
So that's the main part. Want versus need, and then authenticity, which if you think about where we're going in consciousness, those who become successful now and those who become great are those who are authentic. Because it's Aquarius. It's all about transparency. Now you cannot fake who you are anymore. You can try, but you'll get caught and called out on Instagram or some social media. Authenticity wins now. And so the astrology chart lets you just accept who you are. Like, I'm a deeply disorganized person, and it's fine.
It's so refreshing. And it's there's so much permission in that to just accept and own who you are for all of the gifts, all of the quirks, all the unique things, and just, this is who I am. So I have that. It helps us be seen. It helps us identify what we actually need versus what we think we want, and then helps us show up authentic with what you just said about authenticity. And going into the age of Aquarius needs to go on a meme on Instagram. We need to share it with everybody because it's so good, and such a gift of astrology in general, but also how you're doing this in such a simplified way. It's so, again, nice word you chose for your podcast, accessible.
Hey, my clients giving me the name. They're like, wow, you just made that really accessible. I'm like,
yes.
Oh, okay. So that's where they named it for me. Yeah.
Perfect. It's always the best when it happens that way. Yeah. Amazing. Eugenia, thank you so much for being here with us and just for sharing your wisdom. It's been such a pleasure. For those of you who enjoy this podcast, please make sure and give it a like, a rate, a review, whatever platform you're listening or watching this on, because that helps us get it out to more people. The AI, that sneaky AI, likes it when you like it. So if you like it, share it, please. And then it'll go to more people, which is always so great. And also, we have a workshop coming up with Frank Clifford, which is very similar, not similar in the rising sign at all, but in this, be who you are, show up for who you are, and don't feel like you have to apologize for who you are. And all these misunderstandings that we have between each other, it's all it all can be remedied with a perspective shift. So that's the empowering workshop, that's empowering astrology workshop that's coming up on reframing the zodiac. So to check that out, it's astrologyhub.com/zodiac signs, astrologyhub.com/zodiac signs. And it's all about empowering astrology as well. So Eugenia, so much amazing things here today. Thank you. I hope that we get to have you back.
Yeah, I love it.
That was really fun. Yeah. And I know that you're going to be hearing from a lot of people in our community. So get ready for that. Have your assistant,
she's on board.
Have your fixed assistant ready to receive. And we'll look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Awesome.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much for being here, for tuning into this episode, for being a part of our community, and as always, for making astrology a part of your life. We'll catch you on the next episode.